Hey everybody. Sorry we couldn't meet in a real setting, but of course everybody's health and safety is primary right now. So I'm going to take you guys through the process of how we're going to do this whole distance learning situation, okay? So the main thing is we're going to work through Google Classroom for the most part. That's where all the assignments are going to be posted. That's where you're going to know what's due when. Do I have to watch a video? Do I have to fill out an assignment? That sort of thing. And for the most part, most days, I'm just going to have a video of the lesson, very similar to this, and some worksheet that you have to fill out with, normal, honestly, just pretty much as close to class as possible, except without us physically being in the same room. Now, with the videos are going to be linked on the thing, and they're going to be separate assignments, okay? So the video and the worksheet are going to be totally separate things. You have one here and one here. You are expected to do both by the time they're due. The videos are mostly going to be on this website called Edpuzzle. The reason behind this, and if you guys have Mr. Madden, you understand this whole thing because he uses it a lot. The reason behind it is that way I can see whether or not you're watching them and also ask you questions along the way to make it a little more interactive, a little less boring than just like, hey, look, listen to my voice, and then fill out the worksheet. And you'd get tired with that. So this asks you some stuff just to make sure you understand things along the way. Also, if I notice that everybody's not clear on this one little topic, then I can address it when we have class time. Don't worry, we'll address that in a second. So, with the videos, you're expected to do exactly what you're expected to do in class. You're going to do the do now. Actually do it. Try it out. Get a separate sheet of paper. Treat it like your notebook. And then do the problem. Then take notes. When it says to take notes, take notes. I'm going to say something like, pause your video now so you can write down this slide of notes. Do it. It's not complicated. I'm not asking like anything too crazy here. And then after that, usually there'll be an example problem, something like that, like here's how to find a side with trig, for example. Obviously, we already did that, so we're not going to do it again, but still. So there's going to be an example problem. Copy it down, follow along the exact same way you normally would in class. The benefits, though, are that you can pause me, and if I'm going too fast, just pause. Like right now, if you didn't follow that, pause. And then go back, listen again. All right, now, the assignment portion, like some sort of task or a bunch of questions, whatever it may be for the day. The one important thing you need to know is that I need your written work. I need you to absolutely upload the stuff that you've written down. Now this can take many forms, and it's totally up to you which one you want to choose. If you have an iPad and an Apple Pencil, like I am using right now, then you could just write your work right here and then copy it down and just submit that digital file, which would be fine. No worries. Or, I imagine many of you don't have that, you could print out the actual worksheet, do the work right on the worksheet, normal pencil and paper sort of situation, and then take a picture of it and upload it to Google Classroom. So if you just upload it in the assignment tab, I can see it that way. If you don't have a printer at home, you could also just get a separate sheet of paper, show your work on that, and then upload the picture of the work on the separate sheet. Now, the one thing with that is be sure to label like which question's which, like if this is supposed to be the one from the top left, make sure I understand which question it is. And yes, we need you to show your work. That's not a new situation either. That's just, it's easier for me to walk around and say, hey, show your work. In this case, I'm telling you right now, show your work, submit your work. Also, sometimes there won't be a thing like this. Sometimes we'll have an assignment and it will just be due on Delta Math. If there's an assignment on Delta Math, you don't have to submit it through Google Classroom. You guys should be pretty comfortable with that. Ooh, one quick thing. Why don't we jump down to the bottom here because I said the word Delta Math, and I want to repeat this at least a bunch of times. Homework is still going to be on Delta Math every Tuesday and Friday, the exact same schedule we've been having the entire time, okay? Keep doing your Delta Math. I'll keep sending you reminders for you guys to do it. All right, back up to the top here. sometimes there's like, you guys are aware that you can have like message board posts in Google Classroom. I think roughly once a week or so, I'm gonna have a time when you have to make an actual response to a couple of questions on the message board. So do it. You will be graded on this. This will be something you're graded on. This is like, think of this as like a class discussion sort of thing. And you doing it is participating in class. If you're not doing it, then you're not participating, and I'm not sure if you're learning the material, okay? Now, speaking of class time, obviously we can't meet in person because that's dangerous and scary. So what we're gonna do is during your normal class periods, and that's the way everything's gonna work now, like normal class times for everything, you guys, we're gonna have a little virtual class thing on Google Meet. And with Google Meet, I'm going to set up a calendar invite through Google Classroom, and the calendar invite will have a link. You guys just link in, and we'll go from there. Each one of these things, I don't anticipate being a lot longer than like 10, 15 minutes most likely. It won't be anything too crazy. Your attendance is definitely expected. If you guys go missing for a while, we're gonna start calling some people. We'll call your parents, we'll call the guidance counselor, see if everything's okay, see what's happening. And this is your chance to ask for help on the assignments. If you're getting real confused, this is the time you can ask for some help. Obviously, you can always reach out to me anytime and ask for help, but this is a more formal setting. And also, it helps keep the classroom balanced and keep everybody feeling like a sense of community like we've had. And the way we're gonna do it, at least in the beginning, is on Monday and Wednesday. We're gonna meet with periods 2, 4, and 8 for Monday and Wednesday at the normal class times. By the way, notice that on Monday your class times are different. That's still the same. It's still the same weird Monday schedule. And on Tuesday and Thursday, that's when I'm gonna meet with periods 3, 5, and 9, okay? I'll send out calendar invites for all these things, but just be aware that this is where you have to be for these times. And on Friday I'm gonna have some office hours available, and you just have to request a Google Meet session with me, and we can do like one-on-one help, one-on-one tutoring with the assignments you're having trouble with. Oh, and did I forget to mention that Delta Math is still due every Tuesday and Friday? No, I didn't forget that? Great, cool. Let me just say it one more time. Delta Math is still due every Tuesday and Friday. This is crucial so you don't forget the material that we've learned already. Okay, so what we're gonna do now, I'm gonna show you like a very basic bare bones form of how these lessons are gonna work, okay? So just like normal class, here's a do now, all right? And I'll just read it off for you, and then it'll be your chance to try it out. So, do now says, what are the slopes and distances of the segments to the right? They're talking about the slope and distance of FFs and the slope and distance of FM. So what you should do now is pause your video and figure out the answer to it, okay? All right, now let's go over it. Hopefully you've had a chance to go over these things by now, so let's try it out. So if we're looking at, say, let's start with FS, and we need its slope and its distance. So with that, let's find the slope here. Let's count this. That goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it goes over 3. So the slope of this is, of course, 6 over 3, which just equals 2. In case you guys forgot how to find the distance, we're just going to use the Pythagorean theorem. 6 squared plus 3 squared equals x squared. You get 36 plus 9 equals x squared. X squared equals 45, which means that x equals radical 45. You can simplify it if you want. If you want to simplify it, it's 3 radical 5. So that's the distance of FS. Cool? Now let's look at FM. So for FM, slope is going to be down 2 over 1, 2, 3, 4. So the slope is negative 2 over 4, which equals negative 1/2. And for the distance, we're going to use the same thing. We're going to use the Pythagorean theorem, except with 2 and 4. 2 squared plus 4 squared equals x squared. I get 4 plus 16 equals x squared, and that equals 20. So the square root of 20 is the distance of FM, which reduces to 2 radical 5. So now, I think the important thing here is what conclusions can we draw from this? Hopefully you guys are seeing a big conclusion right here with the slopes. Hopefully you guys noticed that these slopes are opposite reciprocals, which means that Fs is perpendicular to Fm, which means that there's a right angle right there at angle F. Now, there is one thing we can glean from these distances, but it's not a super exciting thing to point out, and, you know, whatever. But we can tell by this, since these numbers are not the same, that these are not congruent line segments. If they were the same number, they'd be congruent, but in this case, they're not. Okay, so that was the do now. Let's move on to a very abbreviated mini lesson for this one, okay? So normally this would be the point where we go over like what's the new material for the day, what do you have to learn? But in this case, we really just want to review Unit 7 because we were pretty much done with Unit 7 when all this happened. We just needed to go over some like basic review and remember we were going to take a test, but yeah, now we can't do that anymore. Oops, sorry. So here's the basic stuff we covered in Unit 7. We talked about the properties of various quadrilaterals right here. And, you know, there was kite, trapezoid, not really huge players, but they did exist. Parallelogram, by far your most important one. It pops up on the Regents all the time. Rhombus, rectangle, and square, also very popular. These are the 4. If you don't know the properties of these 4, you need to know the properties of these 4. Now, we also got into some like real basic coordinate geometry sort of stuff. There was the distance formula, which of course is the same thing as the Pythagorean theorem like we did in the do now, but you could also write out the actual formula for the whole thing. And there is the distance formula, which if you look at it, this is basically your a squared, this is your b squared, and then this is like your c, but remember you always have to take a square root at the end, so it's the same formula, it's the exact same thing. All right, with the midpoint, remember, you want the average of the x's and y's. You just want to find the average of the x coordinates between 2 points and the average of the y coordinates. And here's the formula for that as well. So if you look at it here, we have x1 plus x2 divided by 2. That's the average of the x coordinates. And y1 plus y2 over 2, again, just the average of the y coordinates. Partitioning. I'm not sure if you remember, but that's like if you wanted to break it into a 3-to-2 ratio between 2 points, you would want to go 1, 2, 3 jumps from one side and 2 jumps from the other side and use that point. I highly suggest you graph these problems. They're much easier to graph these things. Okay, slope. Slope we just did in the do now. Rise over run. Or, of course, the formula of that, which is also the same as rise over run, is y2 minus y1, that's your rise, change in the y values, over x2 minus x1, which is the run, the change in the x values. Now, parallel and perpendicular equations, we wrote some equations with that. They were mostly in the form y equals mx plus b, where m is your slope, and then b is your y-intercept. And the one thing to remember with this is if the lines are parallel, they have the same slope. And if they're perpendicular, the slopes are, just like in the do now, opposite reciprocals. And then, in case you forgot what coordinate proofs are where you have to prove it's a certain sort of figure. Like, for example, they give you 4 coordinates and they say, prove it's a rhombus. Well, I know a rhombus has 4 sides that are congruent to each other, so I'm going to find the distance of all 4 sides. Hopefully they're the same thing, and then I'm going to write a conclusion that says, this is a rhombus because all 4 sides are the same length. So remember with that, you have to do a little math, and then you need a concluding statement. Like 1 or 2 sentences that explains why your math proves your certain shape. Okay? So for this assignment, you guys are just going to have a bunch of problems that are Unit 7 related on all of these main topics. There's a QR code for each one, so if you get stuck and forgot how to do some of them, watch the video on the QR code. Now, I apologize for the length of this video. This is probably one of the longest ones I'll ever do, but the main thing was we had to explain the process in the beginning. Usually these will be less than 10 minutes. If you guys ever need more help with this, rewind it. Go back and try listening again to some of this stuff. Also, feel free to reach out to me if you guys are stuck. Good luck. I hope you guys make the best of this bad situation. I hope everybody's healthy and doing well, and feel free to check in with any concerns.